Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
And we are doing this on Zoom again tonight. We'll put some of the clips up on YouTube. And I'm keen to do that because nobody told me it was cosplay tonight. We've got Steve dressed as
Pentagon from AEW.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
the match from last week?
The same one?
Yeah, same one.
Yeah, okay.
And Zach is dressed as a kind of a cross between Gandalf and Dumbledore.
What are you wearing, Scottish kit?
I am wearing my 1994 East Fife top that when I put on and I said to my wife, what do you think of this? She made a face. And then I said, what year do you think this is from? And she said the 70s. It's kind of a nice pinstripe for those listening to the podcast. And long-sleeved as well, a rarity these days in football tops.
Perfect for July.
Yeah. It also has the smallest neck. Trying to get your head through this is like really, really difficult.
It's like giving birth?
I imagine it's worse than giving birth. But we're not here to talk about such things. We're here to delve into what has been a crazy time in the world of Major League Soccer. Last week, I decided to take a week off, recharge my batteries, because I thought it's going to be busy. MLS tournament is going to be getting underway. The next show that we're going to do, which is this one, was we're going to be looking forward to the Whitecaps against FC Dallas on Thursday. Kind of preview the tournament. I thought, yeah, we're sick of talking about all the COVID stuff. Football's back. Let's take a week off so we're not talking about the same stuff. Oh, and then we've had an interesting 2 weeks. Football coming back in the time of COVID. It was always going to be challenging. We knew that players would test positive. We knew there would be ups and downs. But ultimately, we knew that the league would put on a good show, put on some good performances, put on some great football, and ultimately everyone would say that it was worth it and it was a massive success. But enough about the Bundesliga. We're here to talk about MLS. We want to dedicate this episode primarily to the MLS is Back tournament, to give it its official name, or the COVID Cup, as it has now been known to everyone else. And it's been a long 2 weeks. They say that a week is a long time in politics. Apparently a fortnight is an eternity in Major League Soccer. And we're going to take a deep delve into the COVID Cup this episode.
As deep as those swabs go into people when they check them out, right?
Oh, those videos. Like, you see some of those videos and it doesn't seem to go up much, and then there's other ones that it seems to be going through the back of people's heads. So I don't know what the MLS players are getting down there, but I hope it's the former, because they're getting tested a lot every couple of days. So
you updated logo for MLS.
Yeah, Steve's been working hard with his graphics, and it's a fantastic logo that he's got. We'll tweet that out. Very, very appropriate. For those of you that maybe don't see it, we'll just explain it. It's basically the MLS 25 logo morphed with the coronavirus, because I think that's what this tournament is all about. And right off the bat, let's explain that we're going to be recording this podcast over 2 days. So the bulk of this, with Steve, Zach and myself on it, are getting recorded on Sunday night. And the danger of doing this is by the time that this podcast comes out on Monday night, so much of what we have discussed could be out of date because this is such a fluid situation. Things are changing constantly. But I've delayed it because there's going to be a conference call, apparently, on Monday with some senior MLS players. MLS was putting that on. If it does go ahead to call, I think the players are going to be selected not to say something or told that they can't say anything, and then the coaches are speaking on Tuesday. But in part 4 of this episode, I'm going to include some of the audio from that call. But for now, at the time of this recording, on Sunday night, I just want to summarise what has been an insane few days. So as far as I can understand, 19 of the 24 travelling teams have already arrived in Orlando, along with the 2 Floridian teams, Orlando City and Miami. LAFC, LA Galaxy, Vancouver and TFC are set to leave on Monday. Colorado might be Tuesday, although that's currently unconfirmed. The 2 Canadian teams, they have cancelled several charter flights so far. The best one amongst all that was TFC, who were meant to be flying out on Saturday afternoon, and they have been very vocal about their concerns about the tournament. Greg Vanney has also been really outspoken in this. It's been fantastic to see. But they cancelled their flight halfway flying from Orlando to Toronto, and then had to turn around and land in Atlanta. Now, the Caps were set to leave on Wednesday, then it was Thursday, then it was Saturday, and now, as we record this, they're leaving on Monday afternoon at 1:30. And that was due to 2 positive tests, then negative tests. We'll come to that in a sec. But just, what's your thoughts on all of this so far, guys?
I think you're burying the headline. Isn't the headline Caps actually use charter flight?
Well, they have to. They've got no choice in this.
I know. No, this is it. I mean, it's crazy. Like, this is, I mean, the MLS allowed it to get to this, right? From the outset of not saying, hey, if this number of cases happen, this is what's going to happen. Or these are the dominoes that have to fall in order for the tournament to be postponed or canceled or moved or whatever. And they're not going to move it because apparently they've invested, like, I don't know, something like, if they don't do this, they lose like $100 million or something.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard.
That's like a third of an expansion team.
Yeah. And like 1/10 of their billion, they're going to lose for the whole year. My understanding too is that the only thing I've heard was that in terms of like what could happen in terms of number of cases, the only thing, and I can't remember if we discussed it a couple weeks ago or not, or you discussed it even before that, Michael, but is that I have heard that the one thing that Garber has sort of said is they would stop or postpone the tournament if the number of their cases were to put an undue stress or an overwhelming burden on the local health facilities.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know where things are at fully in where they're at in Florida, but
the only thing is it's really if it was older people getting sick or these athletes are not expected if they get sick to be a burden on the healthcare network there. So I don't think that's the case. Now, I understand that you're saying that they didn't discuss what they would do, but I think it's really a fluid situation, like you said earlier. It's a fluid situation. It's impossible for them to put numbers on. They had no idea probably what was going to happen, and they had no idea that back in early June, I think, is when they started the idea that when the dates and everything, that the U.S. was going to get this bad so quickly, and signs are pointing to it. But 20 days or something has been a new record of how many people have been reported new cases of COVID. It's like a record every day, so it's constantly doubling and everything. So I don't think I honestly don't think I don't blame them for this, what's going on, but they probably do have contingency plans, but they're probably just not going to announce it because why are you going to announce something negative when it hasn't even happened yet? So now if they do have it, they probably would bring it up.
One of the counter criticisms that those Steve is that they locked themselves into Orlando so early when they didn't have to. When they announced Orlando so early before they waited to see what happened from the initial kind of reopening of the United States kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But the thing is, Orlando, I think Florida was one of the first states to say we're open up, for sports and everything. And the thing is, they do have the idea of the bubble, which Dr. Fauci or whatever, the U.S. head doctor, he says that would work if you have a bubble. But people coming in from outside the bubble are going to get COVID. It's inevitable that people are going to get tested positive for it while they're traveling. It's almost impossible not everybody follows the rules. So you can't expect it to be the case. I think Bundesliga, somebody was mentioning that Bundesliga had so many number of cases. Premier League, I don't recall them what was mentioned about that, whether how many cases they had going into the restart or not. Do you guys remember? Or
people had a few, but then they made either those individuals and I think in one case I think it was Dresden, right, Michael? Where Dresden had to sit out for a couple of weeks. But I think they're still supposed to make up those games, or did make up those games in the end. But the difference there is the number of cases in the country are
a lot less,
minuscule. Because of what they did from the onset of the virus coming to Europe and stuff.
The amount of positive tests has been surprising in a way. In the grand scheme of things, though, it is a small number, and we'll kind of come to that in a bit. Now, Vancouver's delay from flying out was said to be because they'd had 2 positive tests, then they tested negative. So this has happened a lot. It's been a lot of false positives. Toronto's had this, Colorado's got it right now as well. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'd heard that Vancouver had a couple of positive tests, my mind was like, I wonder which players might have been at Brandy's strip club, since that was where the outbreak was. But I'm sure that was not the case, just to stress that.
There was an outbreak at a strip club in Vancouver?
Yeah, did you not hear about that?
No.
Oh, Brandy's strip club. There was I think it was over 20 people were then infected. If you'd been in the strip club from the Thursday to the Sunday, you were at potential risk.
Oh my.
I mean, if strip clubs aren't a safe, clean place to go to these days, I don't know what the future holds in store.
The normal day, yeah.
Oh,
but I'm sure that was not why. There's also been unfounded speculation that the Canadian teams are waiting to the very, very last minute to travel, as in Toronto and Vancouver, because Montreal's already there, because they're waiting to see if the tournament gets cancelled so that they don't have to be down there and then come back, because then they'd have to go into 14 days quarantine. I'm pretty sure that's not why they aren't going down, but we'll talk about players' kind of physical and mental health in the next part. But how unsettling must this be, especially if we just look at the Vancouver situation? For these players, it's like they've told their family, especially those with kids, okay, Daddy's going to Disneyland without you. I'm leaving on Wednesday. And then the kids are like, oh, okay. And then Wednesday night, Daddy's still there. And it's like, it's okay, I'm going tomorrow. And then the next night, he's still there. And then, so I'm going at the weekend, but no, he's still there. And then they must be like, please go. But to be serious, I mean, this is really unsettling for the players because they don't know when they're going. You've got to kind of get in a mindset for travel at the best of times, I feel sometimes. And to have all this and everything they don't know what they're going into, they're just hearing all this stuff. I'm pretty sure the stuff we're not hearing, that the players are hearing amongst themselves, it must be really tough for them.
Yeah, especially the unknown. I'm sure they've been told quite a bit of what to expect, but even then, you just don't know what to expect because once you go there, things change really quickly. So it is difficult, and I wouldn't want to be put in that situation. I probably, if I was in their position, I would have opted out of the tournament myself. I don't recall, I know other leagues have that opt-out. Does MLS have that opt-out? I'm assuming they would too, right? If somebody wasn't comfortable?
They've got it if you have a medical thing, so you can get signed off that you've got a medical issue for not going. If you just don't want to go, then you've not got that option. They can leave for a family emergency. So if there's a death or something, they can leave. But then someone then going back to Canada for a death has to quarantine for 2 weeks. People whose wives are pregnant, they're not able to go back for stuff like that. So they're not allowed to just opt out. And initially, they had said if a player decides not to go, they would be punished. So I'm guessing they'd have their wages suspended or withheld or something like that.
The opting out would mean that you get your salary. That's what I mean by opting out.
Now, as I said, the number of positive tests is still relatively small in terms of everyone that's involved in the whole tournament, but it's concerning on a number of levels. And there's the false negatives, the positive test once people are arriving there, and then there's been positive tests within the bubble, but you can be fairly sure that they got that before they went into the bubble, and the incubation period is just that hasn't shown up. Obviously not a guarantee of that, but we keep getting told that once inside the bubble, everything is really good. Now, I had a chat, Sam Stachel from The Athletic, and there was an epidemiologist, we're having a chat, which I jumped in on, and they were kind of talking about the false positives and everything like that, and they think a lot of it could be coming from the fact that they're using different labs. So they're using labs in their local market. So in Vancouver, for example, we're using a certain lab to do the tests. Well, once they land there, it goes to a local lab and they're getting different results. Which for me, if I test positive, then you do one that's negative, then you need to do another one, which you would then hope is negative. But then what if that's positive and then the next one's negative and you're going back and forward like that? Like, aside from MLS, I find that just concerning in general, that you can't really rely maybe on the tests. And I know it's maybe a small fraction, but that is just a general concern, I think.
Yeah. You'd think that a positive test followed by a negative test would be, need to follow up with a confirmation, especially if you're saying it's, hey, in this lab it's positive, in this lab it's negative. You think the second lab would need to have another test to verify that for something like what they're trying to do with this tournament.
Yeah, just don't take it for granted that it's all okay. I think some teams are having to get 2 consecutive negative tests. I think I'd read that's what happened with Colorado.
That makes sense.
Now, the big talking point, obviously, in the last couple of days, Vancouver's scheduled first opponents were FC Dallas. And they are the worst affected of all. I think it's 9 or 10 players now and 1 coach. It's been really hard to kind of keep track because it seems to be going up and increasing every single day. You also then have to factor in they've got 3 players out on loan to other teams that they can't use in this tournament. Their first choice goalkeeper is under domestic abuse allegations, and I think I'd read that they were down to 16 available players, and many of those are likely to be the young homegrown guys because they sign a lot of that. So we'll come to Dallas in a sec. I want to look at some of the other teams that have tested positive, because on Sunday, reports are suggesting that 5 Nashville players have now tested positive. They're being isolated and quarantined. 1 tested positive once arriving in the bubble, and then 4 more have tested positive inside the bubble. They haven't trained since Tuesday, but they're set to play their first game this Wednesday. So, I mean, surely that's not going to be happening.
That's going to be delayed for sure. There's no way that goes through. And the thing is about the test positive, we don't even know, could they be contaminated tests or something like that too? So it all depends on what's going on there.
Steve, make sure that thing doesn't cough on you.
Oh, the bull?
Yeah.
Again, for podcast listeners, our visual graphic behind Steve just now is the FC Dallas logo with the bull wearing a mask. He's sensible. He's one of the sensible Texans that's wearing masks. Of course, it's now mandated throughout Texas that you have to wear masks. A little bit late for FC Dallas, but it's good that they're getting there. Colorado Rapids, as I mentioned, their flight was cancelled after having 2 positive tests, and they're tentatively now scheduled to fly out on Tuesday. Minnesota, Montreal and Columbus have also had positive tests once they've arrived in the bubble. I think that's all the teams. I might have missed some. It's hard to really know. But a friendly on Sunday between Minnesota and Columbus was scrapped out of, quote, an abundance of caution, since both teams had had players that had tested positive. Now, from the get-go, MLS, as Steve mentioned, made it clear that there was no magic number of positive tests that would have the tournament cancelled. Right now, it feels that they're hoping that they can maybe get all the teams in the bubble things will calm down a little bit and that the games will be played. And that probably will be the case. But the build-up to it has been an absolute PR nightmare for the league. It's an embarrassment. Garber, who was really quick to jump on some conference calls to talk about locking out the players and then coming to the deal and then launching the tournament itself, deathly silence from the bigwigs at MLS just now. They're not commenting on calls about this just now. I can't see this tournament getting cancelled at all right now. What do you think it would take for it to get cancelled? Steve had mentioned maybe swamping the already overrun health system, but as he mentioned, a lot of the young guys, they're asymptomatic, so they're maybe not showing up those symptoms. But you do not want to be the league that puts one of your players at risk that maybe has an underlying health condition that he may or may not even know about, and then something happens to him. I mean,
and there's a couple of players that with diabetes too, I think, or something.
Yeah,
Andy
Jordan
Rose
Morris,
and
Andy Rose, that's like two of the guys that have that. So, I mean, that's a worry. I mean, you hear a lot about footballers that's got heart conditions and they don't know about it until something happens to them. Because the other thing with all of this, like, people always talk, oh, they're young guys, they're not going to be badly affected. But for me, it's the long-term damage that this can do to people's lungs. And that's just not talked about.
No. The thing is I think that at this point, it only gets canceled if there are multiple teams that are completely, like, taking down, basically, once this tournament starts or something like that. Or the U.S. completely gets into, like, it's a pandemic now, but I'm talking about, like, a super pandemic or something like that, where it becomes, like, they have to shut down everything or whatever, no exceptions at all. That's the only thing I can think of where they would, like, basically the way Canada reacted right away, where they shut down everything initially. America obviously didn't do that. So if they have to do that, then I think it definitely will get canceled. The thing is about the testing too, but it seems like that all these positive tests are coming a week before this tournament's supposed to start, or maybe a week, 10 days or something like that.
Yeah, it's the incubation period that's been the crippler for them in all of this, because it's taking a while to show up, and they've all travelled after testing negative, and then it's showing up, which just in general terms, not even MLS terms, it is obviously just a concern, because you could be with somebody that doesn't think that they've got anything, and then something comes up.
You talk about, this could get shut down if, like, the rest of the state or the country gets shut down. The sad thing is, or what appears to be a bit of a sad thing for many people who continue to contract the virus, is that's not happening anytime soon in the United States as a whole, and unlikely in the state of Florida, I would say as well, that they would reverse what they've done and shut things down to try and once again get things under control and to make sure that their healthcare systems don't get swamped. There's all kinds of ways to look at this. One of the ways that I heard recently was that, the state of Florida is now worse than, I think it's number of cases per, for the population. It's worse than Italy was when everyone was, going crazy about Italy in early on in March or April or whatever. And it feels a bit weird that this is all moving ahead. MLS wanted to be the first major male sports league to get back to playing, so it looks like they're going to live that out. But I don't know. I don't think they look good right now in PR wise, and I don't know if by the end of this they'll look good PR wise. But they're playing a really risky game, especially with coming off the back of, for Garber himself, like saying, like, yeah, I'm the catalyst for threatening a lockout. If something goes bad with this, like, his reputation with the players, like, seems to be pretty untenable going forward if there's more problems with this. And so I think a lot of people risking a lot because these owners have a lot of money on the line and they don't want to lose it. They'd rather risk it. It feels like they'd rather risk not losing more money than cutting their losses for a year and hoping that they can keep people safe.
The other thing as well, like you mentioned about being the first male sports league back, obviously the women's NWSL has come back, and it seems to have come back, aside from the whole Orlando Pride crazy situation with the whole team had to pull out, that aside, it seems to have gone off without a hitch testing-wise and stuff. So how has that been a success, and MLS have completely ballsed this up by the looks of it?
Well, a couple of things about that, Michael. One is you're talking about a way smaller league. You know, it's almost like akin to the Canadian Premier League.
Just
right?
8 teams, so yeah.
Yeah, and they're also doing it where? Like in Salt Lake, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not...
Salt Lake's got their stats are going a little higher too. They're running higher and higher as it's going on. So it is getting higher. But I think the other thing is with the Women's League is that they started earlier even. So they haven't really hit that. They were able to get into the bubble before it really started getting big in the States. So they kind of might have avoided the whole situation there as well.
Yeah. But that's it for this part. We'll be back having a look at this big talking point from this week. The Whitecaps' first game of the tournament has been postponed. We'll be back to talk about that and a few other things after this.
Hi, I'm Marc dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Blind date with the chancer, we had oysters and dry lancers, and the check when it arrived, we went Dutch, 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 a redder shade of neck on a whiter shade of trash, and this emery board is giving me a rash. I'm flat out, you're so beautiful to look at when you cry. Freeze, don't move. Chosen as an extra in the movie adaptation of the sequel to your life. A shady lane, everybody wants one. A shady lane, everybody needs one. Oh my God, 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 oh your God, oh his God, oh her God. Everybody's got it, everybody's got it, everybody's got it, everybody's got the worlds collide. But all that we want is a shady lane.
That was Shady Lane from our Artist of the Month for June, Pavement. Taken from their Brighten the Corners album, their fourth studio album that was released in 1997. And yes, I did say our Artist of the Month for June, because we took a break on last week's show and didn't bring a show out last week. I never got to wrap up my Pavement songs. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to put aside Three of a Kind for this week. It's going to be back next week. And instead, kicking off parts 2 and 3, we're going to have 2 final songs from Pavement, our Artist of the Month for June. And kicking off parts 4 and 5, we're going to have 2 songs for our new Artist of the Month for July, who I won't tell you who they are just yet. You'll find that out in part 4. Back to the football chat now though, and back to the COVID Cup. Obviously, not literally, because nobody wants to head down to that petri dish. So as we said at the start, this episode was meant to be setting up the tournament, looking ahead to the Caps, getting back on the pitch against Dallas on Thursday. I'd lined up a chat with a Dallas journalist to kind of find out how the team was looking and everything like that. And I was genuinely looking forward to seeing the team back on the pitch. But best laid plans and all that. Instead, word came through on Saturday, yes, only yesterday, and when I looked up to see exactly when the Whitecaps Dallas game had been called off, in all honesty, when I saw it was Saturday, I was like stunned because it already feels so long ago with everything that's been happening. But the Caps game has been postponed to be rescheduled to a later date. I'm hoping for 2021, but I think that's probably unlikely. They have to now kind of fit this in at some point at the end of the group games, but before the playoff aspect of it all kind of starts. Now, the initial MLS press release that came out basically stated that the postponement was happening, and then the only thing they mentioned in it that would suggest why was that Vancouver had 2 positive tests and had delayed their travel. There was no mention at all in that initial press release that Dallas had all those positive tests. So anyone that was unaware would read that and think, typical Canadians messing it up for everyone.
No, but I think they would. Maybe if Vancouver was able to travel, they would have forced FC Dallas to play their game, even if they didn't have enough players.
Maybe.
Or but if they had enough for the starting 11, they would have made them go on the pitch.
I mean, that would be ridiculous. I know it's a big benefit to us. We could get 3 points, blah, blah, blah. But like for the integrity of the game, which is the big buzzword that's been used by leagues all around Europe when they're deciding what to do with the whole coronavirus, you make a team play after forcing them to go to a tournament and then them having their players positive and not being able to play, you lose all integrity whatsoever. So the league right away, as soon as they knew that these players had tested positive and had to be in a 10 to 14 day quarantine, that game should have been called off way before then. But I mean, my question to you is, should Dallas have pulled out instead of this game having to be rearranged?
I don't think FC Dallas himself could say, yeah, we got too many cases, we're out. It would have to be MLS saying, you have too many cases, you're out, right? Like, I don't think teams really have the option, is how it feels. And obviously with the communication that you just described for us, you can't trust anything that you hear from MLS or many of the front offices. So, yeah, should they? Yeah, probably. I think they've reached a critical mass of their squad, right? That they can put out a match day 16, which is not enough in one sense. That I think they've reached the point where they probably should be excused or removed.
The one thing I know for sure, I can almost guarantee, is that, you know how they were talking about after the tournament they'd have games in the stadiums and everything like that, in their own home stadiums. I don't think that's happening. I think that's done at this point.
And like MDS, kind of the whole way along, he seems to have been a little bit sceptical about stuff like that happening. The Dallas head coach, Luchi Gonzalez, he actually has his own podcast, and he's done some interviews with radio in Dallas and stuff. He's been very open about this and was basically talking about, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know if we're going to go ahead in the tournament. So it was obviously something that was playing on their minds. Yes, we have some breaking news, although by the time you're hearing this, I'm sure you all know the news already. But as I mentioned, I was expecting the situation to be quite fluid. There was a risk that a lot of what we had talked about on the podcast was going to be out of date by the time that we got this edited and out. And that has proved to be the case in dramatic fashion, as on Monday afternoon it was announced that FC Dallas have pulled out of the MLS's back tournament. After 10 of their players and one of their technical staff team had tested positive, the decision has been made by Dallas to withdraw from the competition. At the time of recording this breaking extra part of the show, we don't know what that means for the Whitecaps group. We don't know if it means a team is going to get moved in from Group A. The automatic thing would have been to move Nashville in it, so you're not really affecting the East-West dynamic too much. But of course, Nashville now have potentially 5 players that are testing positive for it as well, so that could all be up in the air. Yup, it's fun times for MLS. Very embarrassing, very unsettling for the Whitecaps and the rest of Group B. They don't know what the plans are just now. Things are going to be changing this week, so just keep your eye on Twitter and all the news outlets to see what the latest is going to be. The rearranged game, I mean, you were talking there, Steve, about they've got scope to fit it in. They do, but the problem is the open slots that they've got are morning games, so it's like 9 a.m. slots, and no one wants that in general, but we'll come to why in a sec. But you've also then got Dallas and Vancouver cramming games in a shorter period of times before they're maybe going into the knockout stage. But I'm going to play some audio from Marc Santos, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. But one of the questions I'd asked him was about the fact that the games that the Whitecaps originally had, they were all 10:30 p.m. at night. That was like 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Everything that the Whitecaps have done, routine-wise, from sleeping patterns to how they're going to eat, when they're going to have breakfast, lunch and dinner, when they're going to be doing their training, everything was geared to all 3 games being late evening kickoffs to get the players' body clock used to that. Now all of a sudden you're throwing that out the window and you're possibly having them having to play a game at 9 a.m. So I mean, that's far from ideal, and it's ridiculous, really, and it's unfair to the Whitecaps. They're being penalised because another team had a bulk of players that couldn't play. And I know you'll say, well, they had 2 positive tests, and that could be why as well. But ultimately, it seems ridiculous.
For sure. And I think eventually, but the thing is, the other thing you got to think of is that both teams have to go through that. So while in the game itself, it might not make a difference, you're right, it could make a difference if one of these 2 teams advance into the next round where it would affect them there. So that's 100% sure would affect it.
So Marc Santos gave a conference call to local media just before the Whitecaps thought that they were going to be setting off. So obviously that did not quite go according to plan. But I want to bring you a little bit of that now, just with him chatting about the schedule with it being out and just some of the other adversities, non-COVID related, that might be facing the team down there. So let's hear a little bit from what MDS had to say. Marc, I just wanted to ask you for your thoughts about, you've got the 3 matches in the group kicking off in the later time slot. It seems the most appealing time slot. I know I was there in the 2012 tournament when the Whitecaps were there, and at night time it was such a nice playing atmosphere and temperature. Are you happy that you've got those 3 late kickoff times?
Look, when it comes to the temperature, I think the Disney tournament when the Whitecaps were here were preseason, right, in Orlando? Yeah. You're talking maybe February, March? Yeah. It's different. My brother Philly coached with Fort Lauderdale Strikers in Florida. He knows very well what's happening in July, August. It's a totally different temperature, even at 10:30 at night. It's very humid, very hot still. Chances of thunderstorm all the time and heavy rain. It's just the reality of Florida in those months. The 10:30 kickoff, for me, the exciting part is for our fans, for the people that follow and the fans. For you guys, you're watching a game at 7:30. That makes a lot of sense for us. What we're going to have to do very well, though, is prepare the players to live a different type of life when it comes to sleeping until later, having a later breakfast, a later lunch, a later dinner, a later pre-game match meal. Their life changes when you play at 10:30, and most of our training sessions are also going to be at night. So that's going to be a kind of change for all of us and a need of adaptation in a different way. But again, I think all this tournament is going to be about adaptation, about mindset, about being ready to go to a place that might be very uncomfortable and where the minds of the player and the ability to adapt to different things are going to be very important if you want to succeed.
Just a quick follow-up then, just about the potential of disruption for things like thunderstorms. Are there procedures in place if, say, the 10:30 game wasn't able to go ahead because of a thunderstorm? Do you still have to play that night, or does it carry into the next morning? Or
right now, I didn't get enough information on that. I'm sorry, I can't answer you that question. But what I could tell you is that there's going to be a lot of thunderstorm and rain, a lot. And these are just, it's a reality of the months in Florida in July, August. So I hope there's a plan in place. I hope we're not playing at 2 a.m. and me, I have a glass of scotch in my hand during the game. I'm sure that the things in the preparation, they need to be in place to deal with situations like that.
Marc, listening to everything that you've said, and I know that you're always up for a challenge and very well prepared. Everything that's on the table with the pandemic, with the schedule, with the schedules for eating, practicing, all the rest, would you admit that this is your greatest coaching challenge that you've ever faced in your career, and maybe for all the coaches down there?
Yeah, not only for me, I think it's for everyone. Every coach that I speak with, they have the same concerns and they have the same challenges. But this is going to be a tournament for people that are willing to pay a price. The teams and the coaches that are going to go there crying about the food is late, crying that the training was changed because of the rain, crying because this didn't work out well, and the rooms this. Those are the teams that have more chances to fail. The team that see every tough moment as a growth and become stronger with it, it's the teams that have a better chance. That's why right here I preach a lot about our mindset. Are you willing to pay a price? If you're going to go there and cry, you better stay home. And that's my message. I want to make sure that the guys that go in the plane and go to Orlando are the guys that are ready to pay a price, to suffer in moments that you're going to have to suffer, to deal with the heat, to deal with the changes, to deal with things like that. And that's what I could control as a coach. The rest is out of my control.
Just wanted to kind of ask about a lot of the English games that I've been watching since it returned. There seems to be, every game, someone seems to go off injured in it.
Yeah.
How are the club preparing for that? I know it's hard to prepare for injuries at the best of it, but a lot of it does seem to be that the players are a little bit rusty from not playing regularly. Is that a concern of you, especially with the heat down there, cramping and stuff like that?
That's a very important point. And that's, I would say, one of the biggest concerns from coaches, because the players don't have a preseason. The players don't have a real preparation with exhibition games and everything. So are the players going to arrive at the tournament at 100% of their capability? No, that's for sure no. And that's why, again, the mindset is important. But I feel that I can't judge the others, what they've been doing, but I feel since we've stopped after the Galaxy game and on a Thursday, 2 days before playing Colorado, the way our performance team and everybody and the commitment of the player to do what is right, have put us in a position that when I'm in training here with the players, I feel that their levels of fitness in general, so I'm talking 90% of the roster, is very high, very high. Then the guys that are not at their 90-minute game, well, maybe they have 60, and that's why there's 5 substitution, and we could deal with that. But is it a concern for me as a coach? Of course, because the preparation is different. And when the preparation is different and the amount of exhibition games is not there, you have a bigger risk of injury. And this is why it's happening in the Premier League.
He's the gaffer. You can't try it on with him. He's the gaffer. Even when he's on a limb. He's the gaffer. When his back's against the wall, has the answer to it all. He's the gaffer.
So MDS there, just giving a few thoughts about the tournament. Obviously recorded about a week to a week and a half before all this stuff had happened. Just to clarify a little bit from the last question there as well, where we're talking about the fact about the weather and that there could be thunderstorms in the area, which is expected that the weather is going to be bad at points. In the summer, Florida is known for having thunderstorms. So the question I had was, if you're playing at 10:30 at night and you've got a thunderstorm delay, what then happens to that? And what I was told, because Marc didn't know the answer there, he thought it was a good point. It's something that he was wondering. He didn't want the team to be playing, as he said, at 2:30 in the morning with him on the sidelines holding a glass of scotch, although that would be entertaining for TV. But the word that I've had back is MLS do have a contingency plan. If games are delayed because of thunderstorms, then other matches can start round about them because there's 4 pitches altogether. Now that's still all well and good, but if you've got a 10:30 game, you're then going to have to be somehow playing that at another time the next day. So again, we could be going into the 9 a.m. start times and players' body clocks getting messed up. And that brings me on to the physicality that the players are going to be facing in this tournament. because you're expecting guys to be playing a lot of games in a short number of days. A lot of these teams, they're woefully unprepared. They're going to be playing in heat and humid, energy-sapping conditions. They might find themselves not able to play a game they were expecting at night and then having to play the following morning. The risk of injuries, I feel, is going to be high, and we've seen this a lot in the English games that's been back so far. In so many of the games, players have been going down to like hamstring injuries or other little injuries. So from the physical side of it, not even looking at COVID, but the physical side of it, this is really going to push these players to the limit.
Yeah, even just when you talk about the starting times that they are using, like I know Vancouver was initially lucky to get them all at the same time, but the other teams in their group were not. I think it was it Seattle, San Jose? I think
Seattle's got a morning one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They have a morning one, so it was like one of the advantages that Vancouver had before this hiccup, we'll call it, with Dallas, was that they were going to get advantage by being able to keep that same rhythm that you're talking about. Whereas, other teams in their group were going to have to, have an altered rhythm. If things get pushed back and if this makeup game does get slotted in at 9 a.m., then that will be not as good for the players and not as good for probably the quality of pitch. And the only thing is it'll be the same for both teams. Depending on what their other games are. It could be the same for both teams if they're having to do that early 9 a.m. game.
Like I said, I think there are going to be, because these guys haven't trained properly. Like you said, they haven't kicked the ball around for very much. But then that's the one thing that we always talk about: game shape. How are they match fitness? How are they going to be, and that when the game actually starts? Now, I would have hoped that they would have gone in with a plan where, if they found that the players weren't that fit, that they would increase the substitutions, or maybe even doing something off the bat where they have rolling subs like college soccer does in the U.S.
Well, they're allowed to 5 subs.
They have to 5, but I'm saying even rolling subs where somebody could come off, get stretched out, they put somebody on, and they can maybe do that a couple times where they have a limitation of that. I'm just putting it out because people say, it's the integrity of the game. Listen, these are different times. You have to be flexible with this kind of stuff. This is not a normal tournament where people, all these sporting tournaments and whatever you're gonna have, they're all gonna have asterisks on them. So why not, if they're gonna have asterisks on them, why not just try stupid things where it at least protects the players from injury, where they're not forcing themselves to go on a bad hamstring if you use all your 5-year subs or something like that.
The rolling subs thing, though, I don't think is helpful necessarily from injury standpoint as well. Like I've talked to pros, especially those who are older, which MLS has a few of those. That it's not great to get all warmed up, get ready, go and play, and then stop for 10, 15, 20 minutes and then go back out. It's not It's not easy on your body.
What I'm saying is for people that they might have had a pulled hamstring, they need to get stretched out, but they don't want to come off the pitch. So it gives them an opportunity to come off the pitch, get stretched out, and then go back on that way. I'm not saying for rest. I'm not saying for rest. I'm saying for minor injuries or something like that, they could get.
I think the 5 subs that's what partly they're there for.
The thing is, what players are like. Players are going to want to stay on the pitch and play through stuff that when they shouldn't be. But yeah, bubble football was something I was going to suggest. Steve's got a great picture up there. We saw it at Thunderbird for the WFC2 games. Wheel it out, get all the players in those little inflatable bubbles. I'd watch that. I'd be more entertaining.
And I think you get kids under 8 or 9 really interested in people bouncing around off each other. That's their kind of entertainment there.
Ideal. I think this could be the future of soccer in this country. Now, we talked physically that these guys, they haven't kicked a ball in anger in 4 months. I do think it's ridiculous to suddenly throw them into a tournament. But the other side of it is the mental side of it. And we touched a little bit on it in the first part with the uncertainty of when teams are leaving and everything like that. But, what must this be doing to them on the whole mentally once you're in the bubble? You've got players that must be living in fear to an extent of there being an outbreak in the bubble, wondering, oh, can I touch this games machine or whatever? Who's touched it? Is there going to be something like that? You've already got the whole being away from your family for up to 6 weeks, and it's like a prison-like atmosphere at times, and we'll talk a bit more about that in the next part. But folk have said, oh, it's just like being away at a World Cup. But it's not, because when you're at a World Cup, you can get out and about, and you've got a life. On this, the players, they're all confined to their own individual floors. You're not meant to mix with other players on other teams, and I read, I can't remember who it was with, one of the head coaches has said he hasn't talked to another head coach in person since he got there. He's seen a couple from a distance and he's kind of waved and yelled across, how you doing? But they've not been able to interact or anything. So a lot of people suffer from mental health just in general. But if you're shut away and isolated and you haven't got that contact, I worry for some of these players, and I'm sure the psychologists on site, and I mean, you know what guys are like, we don't often flag up things that's wrong with us right away. So I mean, for me, that's a big concern, is the mental health side of it.
For sure. But I think it would have been more difficult if they don't have the video access. They could still talk to family members over video phone and stuff like that. So I think that makes it a little bit better.
But I mean, I'm all prepared for the tournament. It is getting underway on Wednesday with the COVID Classico, I think is the name that they're giving the Orlando Inter game that's kicking this tournament off. But I'm prepared because MLS were really generous this week. They sent me some MLS, and we'll put this bit up on YouTube. They sent me MLS 75% alcohol wet wipes. That's good. That's if you get too excited during the games and you need to obviously get your wet wipes out. Some lovely branded MLS hand sanitizer. And it comes with a little strap you can attach it to your belt. And best of all, a Whitecaps face mask. Which, just to read this little bit from the bottom. The face covering is not intended to prevent or protect from any form of illness or disease, in brackets, or otherwise. Very generous. I was delighted to get that. Well, I'm Scottish. Any free stuff I'm quite delighted to get, really. So, yep, I'll be all masked and lubed up. No, that's not the right word. I'll be all masked and sanitised up, ready to go on Wednesday. But we are going to be talking some more COVID Cup after the break, as we look at some of the food and entertainment highlights that await the players in the bubble. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Lucas Cavallini. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Here we go. She's on a hidden tableau. Just a 2-for-1. And the 2-for-1 is right down my alley side. I'm just a wasted behind. Don't you know it's an easy thing when it's lost? Does it show when the air's afraid and it's tossed out? Lined with silver thread, I've seen you wasted behind. Days ago, should have been a West Coast bride, backseat on electric glide, and pilots flying drive-by fleets. Don't hold your breath too long. This tunnel is a Texas mile. Cavities and yellow eyes, bleacher days a second prize. Cherry picking vagrants, my dashboard's locked. I guess I feel fine.
The final song there from our Artist of the Month for June, American band Pavement. That was Texas Never Whispers. The opening song from their 1992 Watery Domestic EP. We kicked off Pavement's residency as our Artist of the Month with a song from that EP. So I thought it would be nice to kind of wrap it up with a song from that as well. Still one of my favourite things that they've ever brought out. All 4 songs on that EP are absolutely fantastic. Hope you've enjoyed them. We're going to be kicking off part 4 with our new Artist of the Month, though, for July. Who is that going to be? Where are they going to be from? Find out soon. And we're going to dedicate that song, Texas Never Whispers, to the departed Marc, the Whitecaps CEO, who's back now in Texas with his family. Although I'm pretty sure with the outbreak that they've got going on in Texas just now, he really wishes he was back in Vancouver. But talking of Marc, before we get back to the COVID Cup chat, a little bit of an interesting tidbit came out this morning, linking Whitecaps minority owner Jeff Mallett to buying a share in Marc Panis's former team over in Italy in Serie A, AS Roma. What do you make of that then, guys?
Well, it's another sports club that he wants to, pass on to his children or something. So I don't know how many children he has, but, he probably needs one sports club for each of them.
I think he's just got 2, Romulus and Remus. Yet your Roman knowledge has let you down there.
I thought you were talking about Star Trek there for a second.
Yeah, I was like, what is he getting at? What show is this I haven't watched?
That's the Romulans. Nanu
Right.
Nanu.
It's interesting, but if you I don't know what to make of that.
It's a bit out of left field, really. It's just like,
Yeah, Mallett more and more appears to be someone who has a lot of money and is just looking to invest it and make more money.
But is investing in Italy soccer really a good idea?
That's a fair question,
Mm-hmm.
Steve. It just seems weird. I know there's people speculating, does that tie into them possibility of him, trying to divulge his sharehold in VWFC or whatever. But yeah, it feels weird. It feels weird on multiple levels.
I was going to say, what if this means that we have some tie-up with AS Roma and we get some of their young players over in Vancouver? That would be an exciting proposition.
Yeah, we didn't get any from his former team, though, in England. We never got any players from there.
I know. Johnny Russell could have been here. Anyway, enough about my love for Johnny Russell. Let's get back to the COVID Cup, where I'm sure we'll be seeing him on the pitch, if it goes ahead. We talked in the last part about players' mental and physical health, and I do feel for the players just now. And I just want to read something that TFC supporters group U Sector, they tweeted this out today. I thought it was a simple message, but I thought it had a fantastic meaning behind it. They said, to the TFC players, if they told you it was the fans that demanded this tournament, that was a lie. We all know that this has only ever been about ownership's bottom line. We give a shit about yours and your family's health and safety. If you don't want to get on that plane, we back you 100,000%. If you do, we back that too. Just make the best decision for you. I really like that.
Yep.
Fans have been very vocal about this tournament. Some journalists have as well. Some seem to be kind of playing their concerns down. But the players, it's a strange situation because some of them are going to feel that they can't speak out. They'll be worried about speaking out. They'll be worried about repercussions, what it could mean for them, fines, whatever. We've seen coaches like Marc Santos gets a fine for referring to Mickey Mouse. And now we're at Disney. So there we go. Go figure. But players are clearly starting to feel anxious. And there's been a few tweets here and there. Some players, Chicago's CJ Sapong in particular, have been pretty vocal about it. Colorado's Diego Rubio shared a tweet today about another player sharing his concerns with him about breakdowns in protocol whilst within the bubble. Teams that were meant to be, as Steve mentioned, isolating in the rooms for a few days and having food brought to them, the food was not getting delivered, so they had to go down and get the food themselves and then bring it back to their room, thus using elevators or stairs or whatever, and they're quarantining to see if they've got the virus or not. So when you hear stuff like that, I mean, that is just crazy. And I think it was CJ Sapong that said, you're only hearing some of this. If you hear some of the others, if you knew some of the other stuff that was going on, or what you're not hearing, it would blow your mind, basically. So if these are the things that we are hearing, what aren't we hearing? Because it is a little bit worrying. And that's why I'm really curious about this conference call on Monday to see just what some of the players might say about that. But there was a whole food thing. Let's get to that first of all, since we were talking about food. Steve's got some fantastic pictures up. I mean, to me, that looks like a $65 meal. I also liked how seasonal fruit gets classed as a banana, apparently.
It is the marketing soccer league, so.
True. Did you read the actual blurb for those sandwiches?
I think I did the other day, but I can't remember.
It was
I
so,
did.
Yeah, there was some weird description.
Yeah, it was so flowery and so descriptive that your mouth was watering. It's like, oh, this like succulent ham, and this like fancy cheese, and then you see the pictures of it, and you're like, did a monkey make that? One of the Animal Kingdom monkeys?
No, he's doing transfer market stuff.
But I mean, the sandwiches, MLS were quick to point out, no, that's just what they get the first day that they're there while they're in quarantine. Even so, that's horrendous. And they were also getting like fizzy drinks and crisps, or chips as you would call it, and like all this unhealthy food that did not really seem suitable for footballers. But apparently the main food, once you get out of the quarantine area and the buffet, it is meant to be quite nice. The players that had tweeted that, like Omar Gonzalez and stuff, were players that hadn't even got to the bubble yet. So they were creating a bit of mischief, you could say. But obviously players are concerned, and I think rightly so.
The thing is this food, the reason why I think it's made a big deal is because of the presentation.
Yeah.
But the thing is when you're in quarantine and this kind of stuff, you don't want dishes to deal with, because that just spreads the thing. So you want disposable boxes, and I think the people are making a big deal out of this. I don't see it as being a huge deal, especially when it's being delivered and like that. I guarantee you, this would look better on a plate if they had a plate and were able to spread it around. At this point, I agree though. At this point, it looks like something that the CSA would have given media at the beginning of a few years ago.
It doesn't look good, but I agree that I could see people looking at this either way, and I think most people are going to go with the players on this. But on the other hand, the players do risk a little bit, coming off a little bit, like whining about stuff, right?
Yeah.
Again, I think it's going to be more people are going to agree with the players' perspective on this, but what Michael, you said it's supposed to get better, so let's hope for the players' sake it gets better, and we don't have to hear about these kinds of first world problems.
But don't fret, because MLS have plans in place for entertaining the players when they're not training, when they're not eating that delicious food, and when they're not on the pitch. They've got excursions and other activities planned. Have you heard all the fun things that they've got in store?
No.
Oh.
Does it match up with the NBA?
Partly. You could maybe say it's a cheaper version than the NBA. That might surprise you. Let me share a little bit from you. This is from an ESPN article. So, in terms of what they can do when they're not doing soccer activities, each team is allowed one complimentary golf outing, as well as one fishing trip. Now, if you don't play golf or fish, maybe not that exciting for you.
Yeah, I think they have the stuff inside the thing. I think there's a bowling alleys or something like that.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get to some of the great stuff that's inside.
There aren't I guess they sanitize clubs and fishing rods pretty easy and carts pretty easy. So
yeah,
those don't sound super unsafe.
Yeah, but I mean, these players are going to be away from wives and girlfriends for a while, so if we hear about an outbreak in the carp community or something, we kind of know what's happened there. And those fish look shocked enough. Now, apart from the one trips that is complimentary, teams can spend their own money on additional trips. So I'm pretty sure we know that the Whitecaps all have their players out all the time because they're such free spending players. So, I mean, that'll be good. Teams will also have access to the beaches, as well as a grotto pool, which has covered cabanas, tube rentals, water volleyball and water slides. Outdoor activities will also include bocce ball, soccer pool, tech ball tables, giant Jenga, cornhole, spike ball, oversized battleship, and Connect 4.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun time, I guess.
To be fair, that's my kind of activities. I'd be okay with that.
And I'm assuming the most important thing for all these players is they have alcohol. And I think as long as you provide them alcohol, I think they'll be happy with everything.
I think they've shown in the UK over the weekend that alcohol and social distancing is not a good mix.
No.
Now, this is something that will excite you too. There will also be poolside movie nights featuring pop culture favourites. I don't know who that is. I don't know. It doesn't clarify. I guess it depends who's available.
I think they're just talking about this franchise type movies, those big franchise like Star Wars and Marvel and DC and stuff.
Well, they're meant to be getting some of the films early release or some of the superhero things. We touched on that in the last episode, but I mean, I'm joking about it. That would entertain me. I'm not a beach person, so I wouldn't really want to be like when we went to Florida in 2012. I didn't go to the beach or anything once, so like those kind of activities as an old boring fart I'd quite like that. I'm not quite sure that some of the young footballers like Jordi Reyna, Jasser Khmiri playing Jenga together. There's a TV series all on its own.
Yeah, that's like a one afternoon outing or so, an hour or so you can have fun. You can't do that every day, no, for sure. I would love the water. I would do the water slides. I'd be on the water slides the whole time.
A bunch of these guys will be bringing their consoles and just playing games up in their room.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Well, there is a Donkey Kong machine that all the players can use. It's a communal one, which they showed some video of players using it, and it was not getting wiped down between use. So
I was going to say that'll be the super spreader.
Yeah. So the other thing that we're all eagerly awaiting is what is the TV coverage going to be like? Is there going to be pumped-in crowd noise? No one's asked me to spend my hard-earned money getting a cardboard cutout. I wanted so much to get a cardboard cutout down there so you could see me in the stands, but it doesn't look like MLS are doing that. I don't know if you heard, Leeds United had to issue an apology because one of their fans had paid for a cardboard cutout and it was of Osama bin Laden. So he was in the stands at Elland Road.
And nobody noticed that before they put him in?
Nope.
Oh. I noticed that.
Was it
somebody a young intern who doesn't know that?
That's what I'm saying. It was probably somebody that wasn't even around back then and knows what's going on.
I mean, the fun you could have with doing this. You could submit Greg Kerfoot and then folk would know what he looks like at a game.
Well, his picture's out there now.
But yeah, you could have some great fun with that. I'm pretty sure if teams do return to their home markets, as we have to say, then the clubs will look to get some money from that, and I'm probably going to waste some money getting some. I'll get Bailey, Predictor Pooch, we'll have him in the stands at a BC Place. Maybe a serial killer or two. Charles Manson, that would be a good one to have. Because you want to have an intimidating atmosphere behind the goal, kind of like a rogues gallery, even more scary than what Curva Collective looked like.
Oh, Michael.
But back to the TV coverage. There was an article in the LA Times today, and it kind of revealed some of the stuff as to what it's going to be like. It looks like they're going to mic up the referees, or at least the referee in the middle is going to have a mic on him, so that could be interesting.
I mean, seems like an opportune time to test that, because you're going to be hear him a little bit anyways. Nice photo, Steve. The human foosball.
I think that might be the future of soccer. Maybe that's the future. There's options.
I'm fed up, like watching the English games. I'm really enjoying the ones that's not got the crowd noise and just like the atmosphere of the players. So I was watching the League One playoffs. I lost count of the amount of times the commentator had to apologise for the swearing. It was like every few seconds it felt like some player was going like just swearing his head off.
But that's the difference there. Like if you're not going to put the crowd noise in, you're going to get that. So you'll definitely
I'm glad the Bundesliga went without the fake crowd noise.
There's going to be 160-person crew producing the games and more than 20 cameras, which is about double the number for regular like MLS broadcasts. They're going to have 2 in the locker rooms, and there's going to be a camera on a drone that's going to buzz across the field during the game.
See, I'm not a fan of this at all. Like for soccer/football games, you do not need that many cameras. The thing that ruins the games for me when I watch them on TV is the people cutting. Like, say somebody scores a goal and they immediately cut away from the goal and show somebody in the stands. And they show the coach. Then they show something else. Then they show the goalie opposite. They barely ever show the celebration of the player scoring the goal and what happens afterwards. Like in the English broadcast, German broadcast, they concentrate on the player as he celebrates and he runs to the stands. And then in the replays, you start showing the reaction of other people. I can't stand too many cameras in these broadcasts.
I agree with you, Steve. There's nothing more beautiful than like football celebrations, and you don't want to get away from those. Mike, do you know what how many cameras are at like a World Cup game? Because if they're saying there's 10 at MLS and 20 for this tournament, does anyone? I don't know what the numbers.
I don't know. It feels like it would be a lot more. But the best thing about the drone thing is the article said the drone will be flying lower than would be safe in a normal football stadium with fans in attendance.
How annoying is that going to be for the players?
Exactly.
But you're going to hear the buzzing of the drone, I'm assuming, the whole time.
Yeah, I would think so. It also says that they're going to strap 2 cameras on 2 poles. So I don't know if that's Lewandowski and Boniek, maybe bringing him out of retirement or something, but that'll be fun to watch.
Camera on a pole match.
There we go.
Is anyone taking odds on the first player to hit the drone with the ball on purpose?
Well, some of our former strikers would have done it, maybe not on purpose, though.
Not on purpose, no. Robert Earnshaw might have hit one.
Oh,
maybe in the next field.
Maybe his ball will come down during this game and hit it.
Hey, that's me. Ernie's a great guy.
Oh, no, I love him. We should get him on the show. That'll kill a few hours. Yes, it's time for some more breaking news from Monday that came out as we were editing the podcast. MLS had a conference call on Monday afternoon with MLS SVP of Media, Seth Bacon. No porkers coming from him in this one. And ESPN Vice President of Production, Amy Rosenfeld. They just had a call just to talk about what the MLS production and broadcast was going to look like during the tournament. Ironically, the ESPN VP had trouble getting her video to work, so she was just on audio. Yes, you could not make it up. But just since we were talking about media just now and what things were going to be like, I just wanted to bring you a little bit of update from some of the stuff that we found out today. One of the questions that many people had going into this tournament was, would there be fake pumped-in crowd noise for it? And the answer is no. MLS want to have an authentic feel. They're going to just rely on the sound from the pitch. I'm great with that. I'm a big fan of that, as I've talked about previously. There will be a delay button, though, for broadcasters to be able to get rid of the swearing, so maybe not fully authentic. But I guess it's understandable with the way that Americans are with swearing on television. You can shoot someone in the head, that's fine, but nope, do not dare to say a cuss word or we'll fine you and take you off the air. So that's one of the things that was released about it. Still not sure that the delay is going to be enough to get rid of all the swear words, but we'll see. The plan right now, despite what the report we talked about in the LA Times said, is they are not going to be miking up any players, any coaches, or any officials. They don't feel that this is the right time to experiment with that, and they're just going to rely on multi-directional field mics, kind of just picking up what they can. They stressed again about the authenticity aspect and that the fact that they don't want to be tinkering about too much with how things normally work. They want this to just feel like a normal broadcast. In many ways it won't be, and they do appreciate that. They talked as well a lot about the different camera angles and the camera stuff that they're doing, and I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. I just hope it's not too intrusive, and as Steve was talking about as well, you don't need too much fancy stuff going on. Just let the players score a goal, film them celebrate, and don't get too fancy with this. I was in the queue to ask a question, and they had actually unmuted my mic, but before I got a chance to unmute it at my end, they cancelled the request. So whether that was a mistake or not, I don't know, but then I never got selected for my question. Most of my questions were answered, but one that I was wanting to ask was, what it was going to be like for the Canadian coverage. Were they going to do some tailor-made production for that? So we still don't know, but they are working with TSN and other broadcasters up here. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to bring this conference call out for our extra subscribers just so you can hear it and talk a little bit more about it in that. So for all the subscribers that we have, check your mailboxes for that. For those of you that are not already subscribing, check the site and you can find out how you can be for $3 a month or $30 a year. So, final thoughts on the COVID Cup for now. First of all, will you be watching most of the games? They're all going to be on TSN's channel, so I'm not sure how many is going to be actually on TV as opposed to you having to log in online, but they're all going to be shown at least. So DAZN apparently have bugger all in this now.
Yeah, I work at home, so the TV's right next to my workstation, so it'll be on in the background, most likely. I don't know how much I'll pay attention to it, but it'll definitely be on there. And what's the earliest start? Is it 6 o'clock or something?
6 a.m. This game's at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
every day.
that's those games I won't be watching for sure. I'll be watching the other ones.
Hopefully they're on proper TSN so you can PVR them, because then you can just.
But I'm assuming they'll replay it because they probably don't. They probably play originally 6 to 8, and then they'll probably replay it at 9 or something again for people that are waking up at that time.
Well, it depends about curling reruns as to if they can fit into the schedule. I'm sorry, the Whitecaps game against Seattle has been delayed as we rerun the 1978 Scotties Tournament of Hearts.
You'd be surprised at the ratings they get for those kind of things.
Oh, actually, yeah. I think it's probably going to be better than some of the 6 a.m. MLS games.
I remember I was watching Euro 2016 this past week because they had it on, and because I honestly don't even know. I don't remember who won the tournament. At that point, I didn't remember who won. So I was watching the game. I go, "Oh shit, what's going to happen here?" And then I remember Portugal beating Croatia late in extra time. Like it was 118th minute or something like that. So it was almost like a brand new game for me at that point because I completely forgot who had won the tournament.
I saw an interesting post today, Michael, on Facebook from a longtime friend of ours and a very influential individual in the supporter culture community in Vancouver over the last more than a decade and a half. Brett Graham, who he posted on his personal page just saying, I can't watch this tournament. Like, I do not think this tournament should be happening, and so I'm just not going to watch it because I don't want to support something that I don't think should be happening. And now he lives in Seattle.
Yeah.
He moved to Seattle a number of years ago for work. I found that really interesting. And to be honest, if it wasn't for wanting to talk to you about what's going on with it, I probably wouldn't watch it either. But I will probably just keep abreast of things as they happen and as they develop. But I won't be watching intently. You that whenever I do have it on, I'll be multitasking for sure.
I mean, I'm probably going to be a little bit hypocritical because I'm slagging the tournament off, but I'm going to be watching it, and I hope it, like, if it goes off without a hitch, I genuinely hope it does, because I don't want any players to fall sick. I don't want this to be a disaster and they cancel it, because if it damages MLS, for all its faults, that's the league that we've got, and you don't want this to cause long-term damage for the league. But ultimately, I don't want any players to go down with a serious case of this, or take it home to their family and an elderly relative or something comes down with it. So I do hope it genuinely goes off like smoothly and that everything's good and the Whitecaps do well. I don't know if it's going to start on time. That's the thing. It's like the two Florida teams can probably, by the looks of it, have their game going on Wednesday. But then after that, it's starting to look a little bit ropey. I don't know whether they would maybe feel that they'd lose face by saying, let's wait a couple of days and we'll just start it a little bit later, because they've got all the TV deals in place. I think they've dug a hole now that they can't get out of, so they just have to basically cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, no one wants anyone to get sick. No one wants anyone to spread this thing any further. But the truth of it, Michael, is their actions have seemed to have already put people in harm's way, right? If a number of people feels like if they haven't been traveling for this, that they might not be sick, and they're sick now because they have traveled for this. So yeah, it's kind of like it reminds, Back to the Future, right? Back to the Future 3, Marty, they're going over things, and Marty's like, hey, what's this thing over here? He's like, that's the point of no return, right? And he's like, Marty's like, what does that mean? He's like, well, if we're still going by that point, then we're this thing is on, no matter what happens. This train's going, over that bridge or not. And so it feels like this is past the point of no return for the owners and the league, and that it's gonna be pushed forward, and we'll see if it ends up with like the 1985 ending and everything lands on nice tracks, or it's like the 1885 and it goes off a cliff and causes a lot of damage.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the last thing I wanted to mention about that too is that I think they got, like you said before, that they wanted to be the first league back on the field, and I think they got greedy in thinking that they would get like a boost in ratings because they were the first league and they would attract attention and everything. The problem is they other leagues that can afford to wait have decided to wait and kind of use MLS as a guinea pig to identify whether they will work or not. And the thing is, you're talking about the test, though. There, you got other things like PGA, for example, the golf tournaments that they do. There are a number of golfers that are testing positive, and that's a one-on-one sport where it's like you can social distance yourself from other competitors where you don't have to be around them, and that has got positive tests. I don't think it's the bubble that's causing the tests. I think it's just the overall country that they're doing the tournament in. NHL might have done the best thing by coming to Canada to do it. The problem is they're bringing a whole bunch of people that might have the virus into Canada, which I don't like. I'm so happy that they're not coming to Vancouver. Yeah, I was jumping for joy when I found that out. I did not want them here at all, especially because Vancouver is a more congested area, whereas Edmonton isn't. So it's good that they're up there.
Last thing then about the COVID Cup for this part. Do you think it's going to finish? Quick yes or no.
I think they will, like everything else in the U.S., I think they'll push it over the line, even if they have to have people literally pushing it over the line. Like if it was a car broken down or something like that, they'll be pushing that over the line. So I think they will get this over, even if they have to call up more academy players or something like that into the team or something like that. I think it will be completed, unless the whole country shuts down.
Yeah, I want to be contrarian and say no, it won't. But I at this moment, I think I agree with Steve that they're going to push it so that it does. But I do think the probability of it getting stopped for one reason or another is very high.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see it not going ahead. I can't see it not finishing. It feels a little bit, it's like Agatha Christie's and then there were none. Are they just going to keep going until there's no teams left standing? I don't know, but...
I was thinking that maybe they should do that. Maybe they just keep playing until you get a certain number of COVID tests and then you're out, and whoever team with the least amount who gets the trophy. And they're more socially responsible too, because they were able to avoid the COVID.
I still like my Battle Royale idea that I had at the start of the year of the Hunger Games. Just drop them all into a swamp in Florida. My money's on Ali Adnan. Ali Adnan will take them all out. But we will be back talking about the start of the tournament next week, and I've got a little bit of audio coming up after the break from Thierry Henry and some of the MLS players just talking about the tournament. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Maxime Crépeau from the Vancouver Whitecaps, and you're listening to the AFTN Show.
Now, Sheriff Batman started out in business as a granny farmer. He was infamous for 15 minutes and he appeared on Panorama. Then he somehow got himself on board the Starship Enterprise allowance scheme with a Prince of Wales award for pushing Valium and amphetamine. Moving up on second base behind Nicholas Van Watson. pushing 100 tons. The undisputed king of the slums with more aliases than Klaus Barbie. The master butcher of Leon C. Just about to take the stage. The one and only hold the front page. Fat man's got something to sell to the capital's homeless. At the Crossroads Motel for the no fixture bonus. Where you can live life in style. You can sleep in a closet. And if you flash him a smile, he'll take your teeth as deposit. There's bats in the belfry, the windows are jammed. The toilets ain't healthy, they don't give a damn. Just chuckles and smiles, laughs like a madman. A born-again rap man, here comes Sheriff Batman.
Kicking off their residency as AFTN's Artist of the Month for July, Carter, the unstoppable sex machine there, with Sheriff Fatman, a 1989 single taken from their debut album that was released a year later, 101 Damnations. You're going to hear some great stuff from Carter coming up this month. Another one of my all-time favourite bands. The first proper concert that I actually went to see was Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine at the Glasgow Barrowlands, that iconic venue. Tremendous gig that night. Support came from Irish band of Frank and Walters. Lots of great memories from us heading through to that one. Also a big regret as well, because the Frank and Walters had a t-shirt that night that I didn't have enough money to buy that and a Carter t-shirt, and I bought the Carter t-shirt, and I always wanted to get that Frank and Walters t-shirt. Never been able to track it down since. Had a nice print on it, but it was the wording on it that I particularly liked. The Frank and Walters, they took me to their planet. But this isn't the Frank and Walters time to be our residents here at AFTM. It is Carter's time. For those that may not know who Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine are, they're a very influential two-piece English band. Started out in 1987, were active until 2014, had a couple of reunions and stuff, a couple of times away from everything. They've said they're not playing together again as Carter. Both members have gone their individual ways, got solo careers, got bands and stuff like that. I still hope they do play some more gigs together because it would be absolutely fantastic. They released 6 studio albums over the years and a number of standalone singles as well. And on those singles there was a lot of tracks that you didn't find on any of their other albums, some great cover versions, just some of their best stuff is actually featured on their CD singles. And one of those standalone singles is going to be coming up to kick off part 5. For now, let's get back to the football chat, and I'm going to bring you in this part a little bit of audio that I've gathered in the past week from a couple of conference calls that I was on. First up is a call that I was on Wednesday with Montreal Impact. My first chance so far to have a little bit of a chat with head coach Thierry Henry. But I want to bring you a couple of the things from the English part of his call, including my couple of questions that I got to ask him. So let's hear now from Montreal Impact head coach Thierry Henry.
Now if you come on down to Highbury, you can see Thierry Henry. He is the best player you will ever see. Thierry Henry.
Question for you just about the challenges around the protocol that has been put in place so far, and what you will be heading into in Florida as far as the protocol that you'll have to go through. From a coaching staff's perspective, what have the challenges been so far, and what are the challenges that you anticipate when you arrive in Florida?
Listen, we're going to have to see what's going to happen when we're going to be there and deal with what we have to deal with. I said it so many times that we're going to have to adapt to any situation because that's just the way it is. Nobody has lived that before. And so we're going to have to go through that. Whatever is going to come our way, we're going to have to be ready for that. It's an awkward one, as we all know, but as long as we're not there, as I said before, I was trying to explain that in French, is we can only prepare ourselves to go there and try to perform. Whatever is going to come our way, we're going to have to adapt to the situation or whatever is going to happen. There's some stuff that we cannot talk about yet because they didn't happen yet because we're not there yet. Other than that, as a staff, you're trying to prepare your team the best way you can in order to perform, and the people that have to do their job for the protocol and the health issue that we might have, or because of the situation that we are in, they're going to have to do that. And all we can do is try to help and be responsive to the situation there, and perform whenever you can. Because at the end of the day, we're going there also to try to play well, show a good show, and show what the MLS is about. So hopefully we can do that.
I'm just curious, with everything that's been going on with the coronavirus, how has it affected you personally? Do you know of any family members or any close friends of yours or any people in your circle who have come across the disease or anything of the sort? I was just curious how it may have affected your personal life.
Well, yeah, thank you for asking that. And a couple of people had it in my family. A couple of friends also had it. They come out of it well. So yeah, I'm sure, everyone on this call must have known someone that had it, or family or friends. And so, yeah, it was, and it still is a kind of a weird situation that we need to adapt. It will never be the same after COVID-19, so as long as the vaccine is not there, and, we're going to have to respect distances and wear the mask, being on the field with a mask, and try to deliver a session. It's not the easiest thing, but you have to adapt. You have to understand that you have to wear it. But to answer to your question again, and thanks again to ask that question. A couple of my family members had it. Like I said, friends, and you start to realize. I think, like I said earlier on the call, I don't know if you were on it. Like COVID-19 brought us back to being human and being together and help each other. And I hope, it wasn't only because of the pandemic that we can carry on doing the same thing, hopefully.
I wanted to ask you, again, a kind of personal question for yourself. You're new to the city, you're new to the club, but you had a couple of games under your belt as a coach at the Impact. How challenging have you found the last couple of months as a head coach during this? And what's kind of been the greatest challenges that you've faced during this time?
Well, in all fairness, it has been challenging, but it has been challenging for everybody in this world. What was challenging is we felt that we were going places because we were carrying momentum. Although I know we lost against Olympia, but I don't think we did deserve to lose, and we had an amazing second half where we could have reversed the tie, but we didn't. And then you have to stop. So you have to restart again. Having said that, because we stopped also, we got our injured players back. That was very challenging, in all fairness, to be able to try to put something into the brain of the players, that they can understand what you want and how we train. And physically, they were to a certain level where they could repeat sprints, and that's how we want to play. Then suddenly you have to stop and start again. It's not always easy to do that. And that was, in all fairness, as a coach and as, the staff also pretty challenging.
Wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, I know it's been a while, but the draw, and are you excited about the fact of drawing Toronto FC, and what are your thoughts heading into your first taste of the Canadian Classique as a Montreal Impact manager?
Well, we all know how special the game is for the blue side of this country. It will be my first, and so, I can understand the rivalry. I saw it from afar. Having Patrice Bernier and a couple of people that have been fans of this club for a very long time, they're telling me how much they care about it. The fans already told me how much they care about it. I'm sure it's the same on the right side, obviously of Canada and Ontario. But listen, it is what it is. It's not only going to be Toronto in this group. We played already against New England. We're gonna have to play DC. So yeah, it is what it is. That's how it's going to be. But I know it is a special game, and I'm not going to pretend that I know all about it, because I don't. I just arrived and I know I'm going to feel it. We want our fans, and fans usually bring a special addition into the game normally. But we're going to have to deal with what we have to deal, as the situation. But yes, it is an important game, and trust me, everybody is letting me know how special it is.
I want to know, competitive players, of course, at this level, you want to win every single game. But I was wondering, with MLS adding that Champions League qualification if you win the tournament. Just want to know your thoughts on that instead of just having the games just count for the regular season.
Well, listen, it is what it is. You know, obviously, you know the rules because you just told us. But for us, is when you have a game in front of you, you're trying to be the best team that you can, put the best team that you can out there, also in function of what's going to happen for us in the next week. And after the first game and the second game and the third one, if you go through, you're going to have to readjust and see how the guys are coping with it, physically and mentally. That's very important as a coach. But yeah, as you said it yourself. You try to play a game one by one and try to win them all. That's always going to be the goal, and that's going to be the goal for all the teams that are going there. That's how we're going to prepare to try to win the games that we have right in front of us. But, you know, it's going to only be one winner, as we all know. So let's see who is going to be. And we're going to try to play hard as we can. Like always, since I've arrived here, I've been asking my team to always fight. And then the result will take care of itself, but you have to fight up until the end.
Tournament football is different, right? Do you feel with your vast experience personally of tournament football, you can pass on your know-how onto your players in advance of the Florida tournament, and also off the pitch, and how you combat perhaps hotel fatigue or boredom amongst the squad?
Well, I kind of, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because I know I played a lot of tournaments and I was involved in a lot of tournaments for a long time, even at a young age, right? But we could go out, you could have a day off, you could go into towns, you could see people, you could have your family. So you can't compare that to where we're gonna go. And understand me well, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying the situation is different because of COVID-19, right? We all know that we cannot do that. And so it's difficult to compare. It's uncomparable for me. And also when you play into a tournament, normally you play between 3 to 5 friendly games before you go into a tournament. But again, because of COVID-19, you cannot. So for me, it will be the first time that I'm going to have to deal with this type of situation, that we all have to adapt to it. And the MLS did whatever they could to put us in this type of situation. But it will be the first time for me to deal with that, because I never dealt in a situation where I can't do anything other than go on the field, back to my room, go on the field, and go to a game. That will be the first time for me, and that will be the first time for a lot of people. And everyone is trying to deal with that and understanding how it's going to be. We have to be prepared for that and understand what it is. But if you want me to compare it to any other tournament that I played, they were not like that because of COVID-19. So it's a tough one.
Just wanted to ask you, Thierry, watching a lot of the English games since it's come back, a lot of the players have been going down with injuries, especially hamstring injuries. Is that a big concern for you heading down there, especially considering what the temperatures are going to be like?
Well, the physical and mental integrity of the players should be the most important thing that a coach should think of. Then the tactic comes. What you want is make sure that they don't get injured. But once again, because of the situation, you're going to have to adapt to that. And as you mentioned, I watched the German league, I watched the Premier League, you watch any league, guys are getting injured because it's tough to prepare, stop, re-prepare, and play. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. And if you add the conditions of where we're going to play, but once again, it is not ideal, right? But it is what it is. And if we want to see the MLS again, that was the way to do it. And so we have to adapt to that. But yes, obviously, you don't want to lose people physically or mentally anyway.
I noticed you also put out a statement earlier this month in light of the death of George Floyd out in Minnesota, and you brought out some thoughts of what's been happening over there and how there's been need of change. I'm just curious, again, with the different anti-racism protests that have been going on, how have those weighed in on your mind as you've been trying to prepare for the MLS's back tournament and everything else going on?
Well, listen, first and foremost, to do what what I did on the statement was just the bare minimum of what I could do. I think that we all know that Black Lives Matter. We've been talking about it. Everyone is doing it. Everyone is showing that they start to understand our pain. Having saying that, I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know what's going to be allowed for us to do or not do to show support to the cause. I have something that I would like to do that I will keep for myself, and then we will see what's going to happen. But we have to become a we. Because for me, at the end of the day, there is only one race: is the human race. And I do not understand how else people see it, but some people do see it a different way. But we have to all become a we, and starting with the tournament. When we're going to arrive there and be together, not only saying it, but showing it will be nice too.
Now if you come on down to Highbury, you can see Thierry Henry. He is the best player you will ever see. Thierry Henry.
So that was Thierry Henry there, just answering some questions ahead of the COVID Cup that's going to be kicking off on Wednesday. The bulk of that conference call was in French, so I'm not really sure what he said, as I don't speak any French. But there was one fun quote which was tweeted out and translated, where he was asked how he was being kept up to date with all the developments at the tournament and everything like that. And he said he gets all his information from Mr. Graham, first name Insta. So obviously the club's feeling that they're not getting great communication from the league there. But the tournament does look to be all systems go, and it is kicking off this Wednesday, as I said. And for all the faults you can find in the tournament, it is kicking off with what should be a fantastic match. It's the Florida Derby between Orlando City and Inter Miami. Not quite going to be the same as the first Florida Derby would have been if fans were there and all the passion and the smoke and the atmosphere. You just know it was going to be absolutely electric. And I think you can also be pretty sure there was going to be trouble outside in the streets as well, ahead and after the game, judging by how passionate some of the fan base is and some of the abuse that's been flying back and forward on social media in the build-up to this one. So MLS put 2 players up on Monday, just to chat about the first game of the tournament. For Orlando, they put up Nani. And for Inter, they put up Rodolfo Pizarro, the Mexican striker that is with Inter Miami just now. Now, Rodolfo's chat, what it was of it, I think it was just about 5 questions, was all in Spanish. 4 of the questions actually were in Spanish with no English translation, so no idea what he said about that. He did mention though that he was feeling safe as part of the Inter team in the question that was asked in English. At least Nani's questions and answers were all in English. I just want to bring you just a little bit of that now, just to give you a flavour, a little bit of build-up to this game that's kicking things off on Wednesday. So let's hear now from former Man United and Fredy Montero's teammate at Sporting CP, Nani.
I was just wondering, with the suspension in those first 2 matches of the season, it's been a while since you've been on the pitch. So kind of how are you feeling and what are your goals for yourself as you're getting back into play this week?
Yeah, my goal is start playing again after this pandemic, after being out from the 2 first games of the season, and try on the first game show quality of my football, of my condition, of my physical conditions, and show I'm ready to compete again and to help my team to achieve them goals. We know it's been hard moments with all these situations, but we've been working hard, and I hope we can produce good football on this competition.
Inter Miami has only played 2 games ever, so you haven't had too much chance to see them. But from what you saw so far in the first 2 games against LA and DC, what is your impression of the Miami team, and what are you expecting on Wednesday from them?
We expect a difficult game, very excited game. Everyone want to see what's gonna happened in that rivalry. But I saw a good team. They are building a strong team. They have good players. They are new on the league, but I think they had time to work, and I saw some good things on the two first games, and they have quality on them players. For sure, it will be very difficult for us, but we must be ready for that game.
How much worry is there among the players in terms of the health aspects of all of this? I mean, we've seen, the news stories about some teams delaying their travel. We've seen the chatter among some players and coaches in the league about how nervous they are. What's your sense of it, and what are you hearing?
To tell the truth, to be honest, I feel safe here. Since I arrived here in the hotel, I see all the conditions, the way they manage everything for the players to be safe. I agree with, and until now, see all the players here, all the teams, they look happy, they look like comfortable with all these protocols. And obviously, there were some stories about some players who got the virus, but I think these players, they came already with the virus to the hotel. So that's a thing to don't worry. The ones who are already here, and they've been managed very well, all these situations. I'm positive about the tournament, about all the bubble here in Disney, and I hope we continue like that until the end of this tournament, because we are already here. We want to make this tournament, and we wanted to make it well, and I want everyone to be safe, everyone to go back home safe and happy.
I wanted to ask you, in light of Carlos Vela announcing today, or not announcing it, being reported, that he was not going to participate. Did you give any thought to not competing in the MLS's back tournament?
No, I have different mind and different way to think about soccer, about everything's going on in the world, all about myself. Because I always try in the difficult moments to find a motivation to keep going, thinking about life, don't stop. You must continue to live. You must continue to believe on the future. And I always think if I stop now, I will not be able to continue further when there is a possibility. And that's why my decision always was to came to this tournament, continue to make my way to what I want. And obviously, I heard about some players not coming. That is a situation we all must respect, because a part of being a soccer player or athlete, we are human, and we must respect some decisions of some players was not comfortable to be here. They want prefer to be with family to protect themselves, them families. But I respect also everyone who decide to come here, because this is life. We must continue to fight for what we want in our lives and to make a better world, and better moments and better days.
I wanted to know what is more difficult for you guys as a players, the mental part into this tournament with, being at home first, then getting to train alone, now this, or the physical and tactical part, having your team, a new coaching staff and a new philosophy that you need to implement?
I think the hardest is the mental part, because once you're here, you are away from your home, family, and then you're not allowed to see them regular or any day you want. You can't. So you must be strong and wait until end of the tournament, because that's what everyone wants to be at the end of the tournament. And once you think like that, it's it's going to be long, but you must handle, you must be strong and believe everything's going to be okay, and then try to maintain the contact and communication with your family, make sure they are safe, because I think this is the most difficult part. But I think if you manage well, everything will from outside will look easy, and at the end everyone will smile and be much stronger than ever, because we did one step over a difficult moment.
So some thoughts from Nani there ahead of the opening match of the COVID Cup on Wednesday? Like Pizarro, feeling very safe and secure in the bubble. And I'm sure once things do settle down, as we said earlier, things are going to be a bit better in that bubble. It's just the build up to the bubble that has been horrendous so far. I also think as well that if today's media conferences were an indication of how things are going to be during this tournament, it's going to be a very, very long tournament for reporters. The two players were put up separately, asked 5 questions each. Didn't seem to really matter what order you got in to ask the question. It was just kind of cherry-picked who was going to be asking what. Not ideal. Bit of a waste of time, really. But Nani said a couple of interesting things there, so I thought I'd stick it in just for you to listen to. But of course, the 2 big news stories coming out of the COVID Cup on Monday was not to do with the upcoming games or the start of the tournament. It was more about who was not going to be there. We've already touched about FC Dallas pulling out. The other big story that dropped around lunchtime on Monday was that the current league MVP, one of the star names in the league, one of the names that excites a large contingent of fans around the league, LAFC's Carlos Vela, was not going to be taking part in the tournament. Vela released a statement on Monday through his club, confirming that he was not heading to Orlando due to a family situation. I'll just read what Vela's actual statement on it was. He said, "I would like nothing more than to be with my teammates in Orlando. I always want to give everything I have to my club, our fans and supporters, and the city of LA. However, it is in the best interest of the health of my family to stay home and be with my wife during what is a risky pregnancy. I will miss being with my teammates and coaches, but I will be cheering and supporting LAFC from a distance. I can't wait to be back in the field, playing for all of you and accomplishing great things with our club. Vamos, LAFC." And I think that's an absolutely correct decision for Vela to make. I really admire him for doing that. It is embarrassing, of course, for the league, for one of their star players not to be there, but it is the correct decision. A statement was issued by LAFC Executive Vice President of Soccer Operations and their GM and former Whitecap, John Thorrington, who said that LAFC fully supports and respects the difficult decision Carlos and his family have made to not participate in the tournament. We have had numerous conversations with Carlos throughout the process and understand his unique situation and the importance of Carlos being home with his family at this time. We appreciate the support from the league and we look forward to having Carlos rejoin the club when we return from Orlando and begin moving forward with the rest of the season. Of course, if there is indeed a rest of the season. So you've got MLS heading into this tournament now, starting in a couple of days. They're without one of their big name players. They're without a team. They're scrambling now to see how they can make all this work. MLS wanted to get some attention and some notice from being back on the pitch. They've certainly done that. They do say that no publicity is bad publicity. Well, I think this is testing that to the extremes a little bit. But the drama did not end there, because just as we were putting the finishing touches to this episode, news broke that Fredy Montero has not travelled with the Whitecaps and has decided to stay at home in Vancouver with his wife and family. Posting on Instagram, he mentioned it's been a tough couple of months for him and his family, and there's There's been a health emergency in there as well. So he's made the tough decision to stay at home. I personally back that 100%. I would back any of the players, whether it was health grounds or not, to decide not to travel to this tournament. If anyone has any concerns, I genuinely feel they have the right to not go to this tournament. There's a lot of murmurs out there that there's going to be more games postponed. TFC only flew out today, so it seems really difficult that they're going to be playing their first match on Friday. So we could have a few more postponements. We might even see the knockout stage kind of pushed back a little bit for this. Nashville appear to have 5 cases with a potential for 8, according to the MLS is back Insider Twitter account. I mentioned this on Twitter. I had a discussion on Twitter the other day that I did not know that so many of the teams were using the same plane to charter to and from Orlando. And to me, that just seems a kind of ridiculous idea. Now, I know the planes are going to be fully cleansed and everything like that, but does that do a proper job? Do they get to every part of it? Is the virus lingering in the air or through the filtration system or something like that? It would certainly be interesting to check out these teams that have had the positive tests since arriving in Orlando. Did they travel on the same plane? Might be barking up the completely wrong tree here, but certainly something that's made me think over the past couple of days. But then what has not made you think over the past couple of days in this tournament that is just getting weirder and weirder? In talking to some media today as well, MLS Commissioner Don Garber has said that if it's getting to the stage where teams' health and the players' health is in jeopardy, or that protocols are not sort of as secure as it should be, he will look at cancelling the tournament. I don't think it is going to get to that as of right now, but you just never know. It's embarrassing for the league, and I mean, they're going to have egg on their face, and if they cancel, I think, yeah, they'll get a lot of criticism for that, but at the same time, if you take that bold decision now to cancel this tournament, I think it's a brave decision, and I think fans would realise that you are putting the players' health and well-being above profit. So I'm pretty sure we can expect this tournament to be going on as is. But that is it for our COVID Cup chat for now. Hopefully we can get the rest of this podcast out without more breaking news and I can actually get this released for you to listen to. But now it's time for this week's Wavelength. And for anyone that is new listening to the show, just to explain, Wavelength is the section of the show where we play a song all about football. Could be by a band, by a football team, by a footballer himself. But the one thing that links all the tunes that we play in this section is they are all about the beautiful game. For this week's Wavelength, we are going back to 2008 and a song from Glasgow-born singer-songwriter Al Stewart from his 16th studio album, Sparks of Ancient Light. And I think at a time like this, with the COVID Cup about to start, every team is looking for one of these. This is a song called Football Hero.
In the center of the field stands the favorite player. The ball comes flooding in. They say a silent prayer for him. 50 yards away, a minute left to go. The ref looks at his watch. Oh, oh, oh. He cuts it to the right, gets past a defender. A blur of blue and white. The moment hangs suspended in time. One man left to beat. He can see the goalkeeper's eyes. There's magic in his feet. Oh, Oh, and a single ray of sunlight reaches down to touch the golden boy, seems to light his way towards the net. In his mind, he sees the headlines in the morning newspaper. This'll be a day they won't forget. Now he's on his own, completely in control of it all. The shot comes flying in, headed for the corner of the goal. Bounces off the post. He watches as it falls. Oh, everyone will say he should have passed the ball. Now the crowd has gone. The stadium is empty. Several hundred times he will watch the replay on TV. Many years from now, when his name's recalled, everyone will say he should have passed the ball. He should have passed the ball.
Football hero there from Al Stewart's 2008 album Sparks of Ancient Light. But that is it for this penultimate part of this week's AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. Coming up, we have part 2 of our latest episodic serial, and we travel around the world with Joe Corona. And we'll be back with all of that after this.
Hi, I'm Alphonso Davies, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
She had a skin full and she couldn't stop. Like a pit top somehow. Could've learned you back to life again now. Ha ba 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 da ba ba. Ha ba 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 da ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Black eye for a black eye, a chip tooth for a chip tooth, a fraction of a half life, some housework and some home truth, and nothing but the home truth, nothing but the home truth, nothing but the home truth. And goodbye, Ruby Tuesday, come home, you silly cow. We baked a cake and your friends are waiting, and David Icke says he'd like to show us how to love you back to life again now. Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday, come home, you silly cow. We've baked a cake and your friends are waiting.
That was After the Watershed by AFTN's Artist of the Month for July, Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. A standalone single, that was their 7th single release in 1991, reached number 11 in the UK charts. Did not chart over here. Not actually sure how familiar people over here are with Carter, but if you're not, hopefully the coming weeks will introduce you to a fantastic band. I mentioned they were quite an influential band. I think nowadays you wouldn't have sort of the likes of maybe Slaves or Sleaford Mods, but without the scene being set as a kind of two-piece band by Carter back in the 80s and 90s. Kind of similar sound as well, but one thing that Carter were particularly known for was their wordplay. The main singer-songwriter, Jim Bob, his lyrics are absolutely fantastic. Some of the best clever wordplay you're going to hear in some indie songs from that time and indeed now as well. And if you want a recommendation from me, if you want to get into Carter a little bit and where to kind of start off, there's their 1995 Straw Donkey, the singles album, so that's quite a good one to get into the feel of them. And if you're just wanting some of their albums, like their first 3 albums in particular, are all fantastic. 101 Damnations, 30 Something, and 1992, the Love album. So, I mean, they're all great to have. Also, I would recommend the solo stuff of Jim Bob and also of Fruit Bat, who was the other member of the band, Les Carter, who the band were named off. Is he an unstoppable sex machine? Couldn't possibly comment. But one fun fact that I will mention, I mean, I've mentioned they're one of my favourite all-time bands, so you can probably imagine how surreal it is, this next little story that I'm going to tell you. Les Carter, Fruit Bat, is actually going out with one of my best friends in Scotland now. They'd known each other for years, just from her going to watch Carter over the years. Both found themselves single. They got together, and it's fantastic to see. Very happy, the pair of them. Had a chance to hang out in the pub with them as well before, and again, great couple, a great band, and we've got more songs to come from them over the course of the next month. Hope you've enjoyed the 2 songs we've had from them so far. We'll get back to a little bit more football chat soon, but before that, it's time for part 2 of AFTN's new episodic drama serial, taken from the pages of the 1958 Roy of the Rovers album. Here's the second instalment of Wanted for Wembley. Last time in Wanted for Wembley, Robbie Rennick, a junior player with Milton Rangers FC, was also their kit man. He was getting the team's kit all ready for their big FA Cup final appearance the next day when he found an old pair of football boots belonging to star striker Jack Rush. Packing away Jack Rush's new football boots, Robbie took the old pair home with him to save them getting thrown out. He was going to ask Jack if he could keep them. Unbeknownst to him, though, these were Jack Rush's lucky boots, Without them, he was not going to play well in the cup final, and Robbie was now in a race against time to get these boots to Jack Rush. Can he do it? Find out more in this week's Wanted for Wembley by Harry Clements. Part 2. Nobody would believe him. Gosh, Ted and I must have made a mistake. We packed an almost new pair. Jack Rush has gone to Wembley without his favourite boots. I've got him here. What am I going to do? Robbie rushed to his room and took the boots from the cupboard. These must be the ones the chap on the radio was talking about, groaned Robbie. Gee, it's terrible. Jack expects to play in his old boots. These old boots. Yet he'll find he's only got that nearly new pair. I've got to do something about it. I'm partly to blame. If Rangers lose today, I'll never forgive myself. Robbie dashed to the telephone and rang the Rangers stadium, but there was no reply. Then he tried the home of Walter Jarvis, the manager, and drew another blank. He should not have expected a reply. The manager was already with the team on its way from a country hotel where they had been staying. Robbie tried to make a call to Wembley Stadium, only to find all the lines engaged. It's no good wasting any more time at the telephone, Robbie told himself. Jack Rush needs these boots, and I'm the only one who can get them to him. He rushed next door to his pal Harry Harper, with whom he had planned to watch the final on television. It's no good getting impatient, Robbie, grinned Harry, thinking Harry had turned up for the TV. They don't kick off for 2 hours yet. It isn't that, exclaimed Robbie. I've got to make a journey in a hurry, an urgent journey. Would you drive me in your car? What? And miss the final? Exclaimed Harry. No fear. Surely this trip can wait until after the match. You don't understand, Harry. I've got to get to Wembley, cried Robbie. Wembley? What the heck for? To see the final? Have you gone crazy or something? What's the joke, Robbie? Listen, Harry, I'm not joking. I'm desperate. You see, Jack Rush has gone off without his boots. It could lose us the cup, Robbie exclaimed excitedly. Well, you can't help it, said Harry. In any case, they're not likely to make him play in his stockinged feet. They'll find him another pair. Please listen, Harry, and try to understand, cried Robbie, and quickly he told his pal about his old boots and the mistake that had been made. Now, do you see why I've got to get to Wembley with those boots? If Jack Rush has to play in those other boots, he'll be a flop. Or anyway, he may not be able to play his usual game. Playing in boots you're not used to would put any man out of his stride, even one as good as Jack Rush. By jingo, I think I see what you mean, nodded Harry gravely. OK, I'll go get the car out right away. We'll do our best, but I warn you, I don't think we'll get there before kick-off. The traffic will be dreadful. We've got to try, insisted Robbie. I can't let down the Rangers. Harry soon had the car running and Robbie jumped in, the all-important boots tucked under his arm. Step on it, urged Robbie. It won't do us any good to get nabbed for speeding, Harry pointed out. Leave it to me, lad. I'll do my best. Robbie sat tense and silent, content to leave Harry to concentrate on his driving. It was Harry who eventually spoke first. I've been wondering, he said. When we do get there, how will you get into the stadium? You haven't got a ticket or anything. I'll worry about that when we get there, Robbie answered. I'll make them let me in somehow, and once I'm inside, I'll be all right. I was there a couple of years ago for a schoolboy international. We were shown all over the stadium, so I know my way around. Harry became silent again. The miles sped by. They were making good time, but not nearly good enough. It seemed to Robbie that the road was an endless succession of speed restriction signs, zebra crossings, and traffic lights all at red, all designed to slow them down. Robbie was itching to tell his pal to go faster, but he knew that Harry was already driving as fast as was safe without endangering themselves or other people on the busy roads. Suddenly, Robbie glanced at the dashboard clock. Is it that time already? He exclaimed. That clock stopped, Harry grunted. Switch on the car radio. Robbie hurriedly obeyed. Almost instantly, a great roar of cheering came from the radio. The broadcast from Wembley had already begun. Gosh! Listen, Harry. The game's started, Robbie cried hoarsely. Next moment, he heard the excited voice of the commentator. Yes, it's a goal! After only 5 minutes play, Hardwick are 1-up. I'm afraid things are looking bad for the Rangers. It's the old story of the advantage being with the side that settled down first. Rangers just don't seem to be able to get anything going. We haven't seen anything yet from Jack Rush. The ball just won't run right for him, and unless Jack can strike his form, I'm afraid we shan't see much of the Rangers forward line. It's those boots, groaned Robbie. I knew it. Jack can't play without his favourite boots, and I've got them here. A fresh roar of excitement came from the radio set. Jack Rush had kicked off again for the Rangers, but their attack couldn't get going. Hardwick is storming back. They're right on top now, inspired by that goal, reported the radio commentator excitedly. It looks as if they're going to be all out for another, while Rangers are still groggy. The right winger is going through. Rangers' defence is all at sea. This must surely be another goal. He shoots. Phew! That was a narrow shave. With the goalkeeper beating all ends up, Rangers skipper suddenly raced back and cleared an almost certain shot right off the goal line. By Jove, that was enough to give Rangers fans heart failure. Me too, gasped Robbie. This is terrible. It's a long clearance up the middle, the commentator went on. The ball's going straight to Jack Rush. What's he going to do with it? This could make all the difference. Rush! A groan came from the radio. Well, well, Jack Rush failed to trap the ball properly. Now it's gone harmlessly over the line for a goal kick to Hardwick. I don't understand it. This must be a big surprise to everybody. I would never have expected Jack Rush to suffer from nerves, but so far we haven't seen anything at all of the form that has brought him international honours. Robbie put his hands over his ears. He couldn't bear to listen. It was all his fault. If only he and Ted Jones had not made the mistake of packing the wrong boots, Rangers might be leading instead of being 1 down. By now, Robbie and his pal were getting near to Wembley. Ahead, they could see the familiar skyline, the shape of the twin-towered stand, and he could plainly hear the faint rumble of the excited roaring of the mighty crowd. Why are we slowing down? Robbie asked sharply. We're not there yet. It's about as near as we can get, answered Harry. I'm looking for a place to park. Gosh, did you ever see so many cars and coaches? There doesn't seem to be anywhere to get in. Just then, further progress was halted by a speed cop, and Harry had to pull up. Robbie grabbed up his precious boots, and he started to open the car door. I'll run the rest of the way. It'll be quicker. Thanks for everything, Harry. See you sometime, he panted as he sprang out. He ran down a wide approach strewn thick with litter of paper and rubbish shed by the thousands of fans. The towering rear of the stadium was like a great cliff, or the wall of an impregnable fortress. Robbie paused, staring in helpless bewilderment at the many direction signs and the long row of turnstile entrances. Just then a policeman approached him. Can I help you, lad? He asked. I've got to get inside, blurted Robbie. Left it a bit late, haven't you? Exclaimed the policeman in surprise. They've been playing for half an hour. Which block do you want? What's the number on your ticket? I haven't got a ticket, confessed Robbie. But I... You haven't got a ticket? Come off it, lad. You ought to know that you'll never get into a cup final without a ticket. Look at all these people. The policeman indicated groups of disconsolate fans hanging about along the approaches to the turnstile entries. They all turned up in the hope of finding someone who'd got a ticket to sell, and they're still waiting. But this is different, Robbie insisted. I've got Jack Rush's boots. I must get inside to give them to him. Do you expect me to believe that a chap in a cup final would rely on a lad like you bringing his boots, especially half an hour after kick-off? What's he been up to until now? Playing on his bare feet? Sorry, lad. I tell you, Jack Rush, he's got the wrong boots. That's why the Rangers are losing, Robbie protested. I've got his proper ones here. I can prove it to you. Here, look. Robbie unwrapped the parcel, and the policeman looked at the disreputable, scruffy pair of boots. OK, I've seen them. Now you can throw them back on the rubbish heap where you found them, he chuckled. But you don't understand, cried Robbie. You think I'm trying it on. I'm afraid I do, son, the constable replied. You're not the first chap who's tried to get inside without a ticket, not by a long chalk, although I must give you credit for thinking up a novel idea. Most of them tell me hard luck stories about leaving the ticket at home on the sideboard, or that they've had their wallet pinched on the train. Some say they were supposed to meet a pal who's got the tickets and he hasn't turned up. At least you're original, but you've got a cheek thing and I'd be daft enough to believe you. Robbie groaned. It began to look as if he wouldn't succeed in delivering the boots after all. Will Robbie get to deliver the boots to Jack Rush? Is that what is throwing Jack Rush off his game? Even if he does get the boots, can he turn the cup final round for Milton Rangers? Find out next time, in the next part of Wanted for Wembley by Harry Clements. So what's going to happen next week? Tune in to find out. Now we're just going to finish tonight's show with a quick travel around the world with Joe Corona. And the Bundesliga has wrapped up. They did well coming back. EPL has kind of done well, apart from the odd injury here and there. I mean, it's kind of gone off without a hitch. But I'm pretty sure, Zach, like me, you were glued to your television screen or your laptop screen on Saturday morning, watching the big game. Vikingur heading to Scala in the Faroe Islands Premier League. Fantastic 4-0 victory. All the goals come in the first half. 2 penalties. Back to winning ways. Beautiful setting. Lush mountains growing out behind the stadium. I mean, best way to start a weekend, surely.
I'm sure it was for you, man. I'm sure it was. How did Sluts do?
I'm not mentioning Sluts anymore. They are absolute shit. They sacked their manager. At the start of all this, we were talking about Champions League football. Now we're in a relegation battle. They haven't won in like 7 or 8 games.
They give it up too easy. That's the problem with them.
Oh, they do. I mean, for a while they were good coming from behind, but now it's like they're just getting screwed all over the place.
Are you going to apply for the managerial position?
They filled it already.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't seem very good either.
They're quick to fill it.
Yeah, I mean, Sluts have always been quick to fill any holes that they've got in their organisation.
Oh, my.
But let's move away from Sluts and Vikings and talk about what you were watching on Saturday morning, Zach. Alphonso Davies lifted another cup. Zach's wearing his special Lord of the Rings Bayern Munich hat. Are you wearing your little lederhosen?
No.
Oh.
I don't own lederhosen. Lederhosen is not cheap, my friend. You can actually, Bayern makes lederhosen that you can buy. But no, I don't. At this point in my life, I don't own lederhosen. Maybe one day.
Should be crowdfund for you.
I mean, you can, but there's probably better causes in the world that people could give money to, right? No, it was great. The DFB-Pokal finale was Saturday morning at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. Bayern got to play Bayer Leverkusen. The result was the exact same result as a few weeks ago when they played in the league, or earlier when they played in the league. It was a 4-2 victory for Bayern. It was a fun game. If you're a Bayern supporter, it was a fun game. Alphonso Davies started the game, played 90 minutes, did well. He's similar to his last few games where, there's some moments that he would like to, sharpen things on and whatever, but his overall play has just been so good. And his contributions going forward and his defending, highlighted by his ability to recover, and his growth as a one-on-one defender, I think were again on display in this match. And so really happy for him, really happy for FC Bayern München for their 20th cup win, for their 13th double, their 50th domestic major trophy, I guess you could say. They have 30 league titles and 20 cups. So yeah, it's an exciting time for the players, for the club, and they are now going to spend a month getting ready to try and make it a treble as they go for the Champions League.
Yeah, it's a good debut, like full season for Alphonso Davies. He's like, obviously the trophies are good, but individually as well, it's just like superb Who knows? Like, obviously, the stop and start of the season probably affected it a little bit. But can you imagine if he had just gone all the way through? What we would have seen? I think it would even been better.
Well, yeah. I mean, the story of his season is something we talk about a lot in different ways, right? Like, he got his chance in the team because of an injury, or because of multiple injuries that forced Bayern to make some changes, to move Alaba from left back to center back, and then they played Alfonso at left back. And so we always talk, Michael, about how players, when they get their opportunities, they really need to grab it with both hands and take it. And Alfonso Davies did that. But I also agree with you, Steve, that I think he was on such a roll when the pandemic broke. Like that game away to Chelsea, I think really helped people on that little island that you're from, Michael, see who he is and see his qualities.
Oh yeah, folk back home's been like talking about him, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah. Like I'm sort of mates with him.
Yeah, he does a bumper for our show.
Yeah. But yeah, that game really helped put him more on the map on that island, and which helps in the footballing world. And so, yeah, I think it would have been better for him if things kept going, but he showed that even with the break, he was still able to contribute. And now just hoping that he'll be able to do that in the rest of the Champions League.
Well, it was after that game when all the stories about Alfonso Davies going to Manchester United didn't go through or something like that. That's when that all happened. Which thank God it didn't go through. Because I would have hated if he went there. That would have been the worst place for him to go.
Yeah.
Especially with the coach who was at that time. But Bayern Munich is a perfect spot for him, and I think he's gonna. Hopefully, he's there for quite a few years. I don't know. He might. I think the only way he moves on is if he's tired of playing left back and he wants to play up front and he goes to a different team at that point. So that's the only reason I see him moving on.
There's a lot of interesting things. I mean, another thing from his season is not only his quality of play, but Bayern saying, yeah, we want to make your deal for 5 years and you need a pay raise because we're not paying you enough. I mean, contrast that with his previous employers, right? But he, there's one key thing, and I think we talked about on other shows or whatever, but one key thing right now for Bayern Munich is just their squad formation. One thing that does have a potential to, I think, impact Alfonso Davies is the re-signing or renewing of his contract for David Alaba. David Alaba has 1 year left on his deal. There's lots of talk that lots of people would like him for obvious reasons. And so I think it's key for Bayern Munich to keep him, because the other key person that they haven't re-signed yet, they've re-signed Neuer, Muller, Alfonso, I think one or two other guys who are near the end of their deals. But the one guy who it doesn't look like is going to be signing is Thiago Alcantara, who has expressed, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge has said, Thiago has told us that he would like to leave. And Bayern is not likely to stand in the way of that. They're more likely to sell him this window so they can make something off of him and allow him to do what he wants to do, which is maybe play somewhere else, like for Pep again, in a different country this time, in England. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But that could play a role in Alfonso Davies, because there also is Luca Hernandez, who Bayern paid a lot of money for, who has been a bit of a glass slipper, getting injured very easily, and so very injury prone so far this year. And he hasn't contributed, and Alfonso has jumped ahead of him, because he's also an individual who they brought in who could play left back for them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things develop with the squad this summer. Focusing number one with Alaba, and then we'll see where the rest of the chips fall.
Yeah.
The only other thing I want to mention in our travels around the world with Joe is first club that we've seen in England that's now gone into administration. May or may not be because of the coronavirus. There's just some unsubstantiated rumours that there's some interesting dealings with their ownership involving it would be more beneficial for them to have the team relegated. So they're facing a 12 points deduction, which could see them relegated. But sad times. If there's any Wigan fans listening, our hearts go out to you. But you kind of feel this could be the tip of the iceberg for teams in the UK, but maybe throughout Europe as well, that could be in serious financial trouble the longer that this goes on without fans being able to get into games.
Yeah. Jason DeVos's old side, and my buddy Samuel Liu, that's I think his side in that country.
East Fife played a couple of friendlies against them back in the day as well, so always kind of looked out for their results. But that is it for tonight's episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's been a lot of COVID Cup chat, but just before we go, guys, just let everyone know where they can find you online.
Yeah, if you want to contact me, it's at Whitecaps Beat on Twitter.
Yeah, on Twitter for me, it's at ZacharyAM.
I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada, on Instagram at AFTN Soccer, and on YouTube at AFTN Canada. Also as well, if you've any interest in Scottish football or you just want to kill a couple more hours of football chat during the week, check out my new East Fife podcast, Glory Days of Gold. The current episode 5 of which will have some interest for Canadian fans. It's an East Fife player that now lives out in Ontario, and part of it he's talking about his experiences playing in the CSL when all the match fixing allegations were going on. So some interesting stuff there. And you'll also hear some wild tales from the locker room, really, about what life is like as a lower league footballer. It includes things like shitting in kettles, calling the manager drunk, or your teammates calling the manager pretending it's you when you're drunk, or being passed out in a room and your teammate answers the phone from your girlfriend pretending to be a girl. Lots of fun stories like that, so check that out, glorydaysofgold.podbean.com, or you can check out my East Fife website at aftn.co.uk. But we will be back next week with another show. I'm sure there's going to be a busy week of MLS stuff to talk about, but until then, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps!
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.